it's going to sound completely insane, but
No?
what what I didn't realize until it was shown to me right there was that I was the prison. The Jimmy character was the prison, and it was seeing through that which brings a certain amount of liberation. That's not to say that I go through my life without having problems and struggles and issues now. That's not the case at all. But there is a profound shift from what things were like before to what they're like now.
Hello and welcome to another episode of For Soul's Sake, a wonderful opportunity for you to learn, to experience spirituality through the lens of those who have experienced it in the most wonderful ways, in the most transformative ways, in the most heart-touching ways. Today's conversation is one I've been excited about for a really long time because when I invited this person onto the podcast, they immediately started by saying, yeah, I've got some deep stuff I want to share. And so I think this is a great platform, a great conversation space in which we're hopefully going to delve into this person's journey and hopefully draw some lessons that we can perhaps apply in our own lives. Today, ladies and gentlemen, drumroll, we have Jimmy Wightman with us. He is a wonderful person who's had a remarkable story of how he discovered the power of meditation and its transformative effects. It all began when he was battling insomnia and depression. He was seeking a solution to improve his quality of life. Everything changed when he crossed paths with a teacher from the ancient Vedic tradition. After undergoing 4 days of intensive meditation training in a small room in London, Jimmy's life took a new trajectory. Not only did his insomnia disappear, but he also found himself captivated by the world of meditation. Intrigued by the science and philosophies behind these ancient practices, he dedicated years to training, exploring, and testing various styles of meditation. Today, Jimmy teaches a range of meditation techniques inspired by a contemplative practice from across the globe and going back through time. His intention is to make meditation and mindfulness accessible to everyone. In recognition of his expertise and the impact of his teachings, Jimmy has been featured in renowned media outlets such as The Telegraph, BBC News, The Guardian, and Yahoo News. His work has captivated audiences worldwide and continues to inspire countless individuals on their own meditation journeys. Jimmy, I'm excited. This is going to be a good one. I want to thank you first and foremost for being here. You drove all the way from Brighton.
Great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
It's a great privilege from my side. I want to go in at the deep end. What's the biggest shift that you've experienced on your journey, and how did that happen?
We really have gone in at the deep end.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, let's do it. Let's do it then. The biggest shift happened to me while on a retreat in the style of Zen meditation.
Okay, Zen meditation.
Yeah, I thought we were going to build up to this, but we're going to go straight in. So the reason I went on this retreat was because I could tell that I was getting somewhere with meditation in terms of I was stripping back layers and layers of false identity. And I was really interested to know if I could get to the full depth of who am I, what am I really? You know, I'm not my body, I'm not my social conditioning, I'm not my gender. Dig. And I got to a point with all of this where I felt like I understood what was being pointed at by these yogis and sages and mystics. Over time, I thought I got it because I was recognizing in meditation that you can get to this place where you are, you know, this vast, empty, kind of alive space, you know, and this is what I thought was being pointed at. So I'd figured out what I'm not, so to speak, right?
Wow.
But there are some teachers, like, for example, my meditation teacher, Shinzen Young, he points to something else. He points to an extra shift beyond that, which I knew I didn't have. I could listen to him talk, and I knew that he was pointing to something that I wasn't seeing. It wasn't in my experience what he was pointing at. And it's weird because people who have that extra shift, there's nothing they can really say about it. Every time you label it, you kind of put it in a box and you make it just mind stuff. So a lot of the time people will say, you know, I can't really explain this, but it's just an emptiness, but it's not really empty. You know, they'll say things like that. So I knew there was some aspect of this that I just wasn't getting. And as luck would have it, I came across a kind of retreat in the style of Zen, where they literally call it an enlightenment intensive.
An enlightenment intensive,
Yeah,
right?
and they say, okay, if you're
Enlightenment or your money back.
yeah, well, yeah, maybe something along those lines. And they say like, if you're ripe and you're ready for it, if you're looking to get pushed right over the edge into the void, this will do it.
Wow.
And so I heard about this one in Canada.
And that excited you?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
I was there. I was already there. I was like, I knew there was something. They say in Zen, you get to this point where you want to wake up so bad. It's like you've got like a burning steel ball in your throat, and you can't spit it out, and you can't swallow it down. And so I had this feeling like I'm on the edge of something, but I'm just not getting it. And I heard about this retreat in Canada, and it was 10 days, completely silent, and it would be meditating all day and doing this very deep practice called a self-inquiry dyad, where you're meditating on a question, for example, who am I? But you do it opposite somebody, and you're staring in the person's eyes the whole time.
No conversation.
Well, how it would work is, say we were doing it now.
Yeah.
They'd say, right, okay, 5 minutes, an alarm goes off. You'd say to me, tell me who you are. And I'd take that question and go, okay, who am I? Take that question into the body, let it land. How am I reacting to it? Meditate on how I'm reacting to it. How does it feel? Who am I? What is it? Where's the Jimminess here? What is the Jimminess? Who actually am I? And your brain will throw out all kinds of stuff. Sometimes it'll be philosophical. You are the one consciousness. You are a soul. It'll say all sorts of things. But these are just thoughts. This is not it. You're not having a direct experience. So you keep asking and asking and asking the question, and anything the mind throws at you, you can verbalize it to the person, just to throw it away, in essence. Because you may discover some interesting things, but ultimately, if your mind is talking to you, you're not having a direct experience of what you are. When what you are comes through, you won't be coming out with philosophy and poetry. So you just keep going and going, and you do this from 6 a.m. till 10 at night, pretty much.
Wow.
Now, I'll tell you something funny, right? So I booked myself onto this 10-day retreat, and in the meantime, I thought, I'll book myself on a 3-day one in the UK just to get a taste of it, so I know what I'm walking into when I get
that's
to
a smart
Canada.
move.
Exactly. So I go on this 3-day retreat thinking, I'm probably not going to get the big shift in 3 days, but I will grasp the technique, and at least I'll figure it all out. And at the end of the third day on that retreat, my brain had kind of given up. So the left hemisphere of your brain that is coming out with all this clever stuff about what you are when you keep asking the question, it kind of gets burnt out, and it just sort of stops and just goes offline. And you start to, they keep asking you the question, and you get to the point where you're just like, I don't know what I am. I thought I knew, but I don't know. I don't know. And my teacher Shinzen says, when you start living in the don't know mind, this is when the wisdom function switches on. This is when the true revelations of things will come through. But you can't fake it. So this is why in Zen they use these koans, like what is the sound of one hand clapping?
Koans.
A koan is a question that's designed to stop the analytical thinking, to get you out of the intellectual mind. A classic koan would be, what was your face, the one you had before your parents were born? That's a classic koan.
Pause. Stop recording. What was the face I had on before?
What was your original face, the one you had before your parents were born?
Okay.
Imagine meditating on that for like months, years.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
So
Left brain just...
But you're not trying to figure it out. That's the thing. So once you start just living in the don't know mind with some equanimity, with some calmness, and just really feeling into what's happening when you're living in that space, that's when something might happen, a shift might happen. So I'm on this retreat, I'm just working with this question.
Was it that
And
particular question?
the question I was on was, who am I? It was just very
Ah,
simple. So over and over again, who am I? And at some point, I start to have some quite unusual visions. I'm reporting to the person opposite me in the moments when I'm not meditating. I'll report I'm seeing visions of like clear liquid with a kind of rainbow in it. I'm seeing visions of light. I'm feeling like I'm floating around the room. Lots of strange things are happening. And it just starts to feel really good, honestly. And I start to think to myself, who am I? I just don't really care anymore. This desperate desire to know the answer to this question is just leaving me. I'm just being here doing the practice is its own reward. I'm just happy to keep going, but this burning desire to know the question seems to have dropped away. And I carried on doing the practice, and it got to the end of the session, the end of the day, and I thought, oh, God, I'll go to bed. I feel nice, feel good. To be honest, there was hardly any thoughts. My mind was completely silent in a sense. And as I was going to bed, I'll call him the Zen master, the guy that was running the retreat, he called me over and was like, Jimmy, can I chat to you for a sec? Oh, yeah, sure. And I went and I sat down opposite him, and he looked me in the eyes and he said, tell me who you are. And then just bang.
it came out.
My normal sense of who I was completely dissolved. Jimmy was who I thought I was, who I've always thought I was. The Jimmy character was completely dissolved. And I just burst out laughing. Honestly, I'm laughing like so much. And he looked at me and he went, pretty good, isn't it? I'm like, yes. And so I'm laughing and I'm laughing. And he says, come on, you got to answer the question. And so I'll let you in on a secret. I answered the question. I said, well, I'm me, but I'm a different me from who I was earlier. And so we're both laughing, me and this guy, and he asked me some other questions, which I answered just without even thinking. The answers were just there, just like one yes, no, a short sentence, boom, boom, boom. There was just no need to go up into the mind to answer these questions. So he asked me about 5 questions, and then he said, okay, you know who you are. And I was just in disbelief because I'd done all of this work. There'd been such a huge build up to get to this point. And then when the big reveal came, it was just seemed so obvious, so simple. It's what I've always been. I can't imagine ever it not being there, but it's been overlooked my entire life. I mean, I couldn't switch it off. I couldn't get away from it, but I just couldn't see it before. And it's revealed, in Zen, they call this kensho. Ken means seeing and sho means true nature. So in that moment, I was just complete true nature. And from that perspective, the person that I thought I was, which is generated by my intellectual mind, which is based on everything I've been through and everything I've been told I am all through my life, that was just seen from a different perspective. So there was just something really funny about the Jimmy character
Dissolving.
doing all of this work and trying so hard to finally just become what I always was in the first place. And it was just this revelation. So
yeah, that's a big revelation.
yeah, you could easily think to yourself, oh, I get it. Yeah, I see. Because I've heard people talk like this before, but the direct experience is something completely different.
See, I can relate. I've been hearing, because I'm really seeing the dots connected in both of our journeys. Except the difference is that I still only theoretically know what I am. Maybe that's a lie. I have experienced it, but it's not yet my reality, because I'm still a spiritualist or a spiritual being navigating a material space. And so I'm sometimes a little bit more in that awareness and sometimes a lot less. And so What I think is really valuable from what you said is this point of intensely searching. I think that people want to know who they are without doing any of the searching, without any of the hard work. And even if someone tells you this is what you are, according to this tradition, according to this scripture, according to this lineage, to the self-inquiry, the self-realization, so to say, that takes maybe much longer, or it needs to be done in a more absorbed atmosphere, a more intense atmosphere. And I think a lot of people are fearful of that, no?
Yeah, and I think what people are really fearful of is that you'll have to be quite brave and let go of who you think you are. Are you really gonna let the Jimmy character die in order to get this
We've been working
revelation?
so hard to build that. No, we've been working so hard to build the Radhika and the Jimmy that the world perceives, and to let that go. Are we ready?
And in Zen they say to have that is to die before you die.
Right.
So I did actually have to have a conversation with myself. The night before it happened, I was lying in bed and I felt like
Something was coming.
something was coming. And I remember lying there thinking, I'm okay with letting the Jimmy character go.
Right.
Because I've already been working on that for a long time anyway, in Vipassana retreats and in transcendental meditation and all these other things. And my teacher had explained very clearly about how the cell structure comes about, and I'd got quite good at letting that go. So that was fine. But then I suddenly had this realization, like, oh, if I drop that completely and that's seen for what it is, and this big shift that I know is going to come, but I don't know what it's going to be like, is going to come, am I also going to lose? How am I going to relate to my wife? Am I also going to see that she's not who I thought she was?
Scary, isn't it?
And then my mum as well. Like, what's a world like where my mum isn't my mum?
Yeah.
And I got into this really weird place with it where I was like, am I really willing to go over the edge and let that go? But then there was this other part of me that just said,
willing you on.
have no choice.
Yeah.
Something else has brought you here and put you in this place. You have no choice. You're going to get up at 6 a.m. and go down there and do this and see it through, and what happens is going to be what happens.
Yeah. Interesting, because I think very few spiritualists authentically, and I'm speaking mostly from myself, but I've seen it as an observer of people that join spiritual institutions or practices traditions. There's very few that join for the purpose that is intended of that practice. Mostly people will join because of social circumstance. They're looking for friendship. We're looking for a sober scene. They're looking for an opportunity to perhaps, build a community and to talk in maybe exciting ways. But there's very few that will go, I want to discover who I am, or I want to discover what the purpose of this life is. And that only hit me when my spiritual teacher, he said it in a seminar where he said, I joined because I was looking for self-realization. I wanted to know, what is that? And I thought back, I was like, why did I join? Like, what was the reason that I started chanting and practicing kirtan and japa? And what was the reason? And I joined out of social circumstance. I didn't want to drink anymore. I didn't want to be in that scene of, Friday night with my wallet down the drain and puking up and fighting over there. And, I was done with that social circumstance, and I wanted something alternative. But I wasn't searching per se for that, the depth of what the practice was offering. And I think that's really interesting. Do you think there's still a value for people being part of spiritual circles if there's no self-inquiries per se as the center?
Yeah, why not? I mean,
Why not?
I got into it. I had no idea this is where it would end up.
Right.
I was the full-on atheist who just wanted to sleep better and deal with some depression, and ideally do it in a quiet way where nobody would know.
Right.
Because I didn't want people to know how, it's kind of shameful that I was experiencing difficulties in my life. So meditation seemed like a scientifically proven thing. And that's how I started out, actually, was I wanted to do the kinds of meditation that were scientifically proven, because that would, cure me of my problems. And then, funnily enough, when it worked, I remember thinking, I could be a meditation teacher, but what I'd do is I would strip out all the spirituality, because that's not needed. The words cultural appropriation weren't in my vocabulary at this point in my life. And I thought, I could teach people and talk about it, the way these evidence-based fitness people kind of do. I could be that for meditation. So In order to become a teacher, though, you end up doing loads of teacher training and studying loads of these
Convinces you.
old texts, and you start to come around like, hey, hang on, maybe these yogis knew something, and maybe actually, and also you have your own experiences. So once you've experienced the chakras in quite a big way, it's like, oh, okay, well, that's not just a made-up thing anymore to me. I have direct experience of that.
Then you can't not share that.
Yeah, and it would be weird to leave that off the table.
I found that interesting. Like when I saw Wim Hof's method, like everyone thinks it's revolutionary, but that's actually steeped deeply in Vedic texts, and a lot of it's like not new. It's just been packaged in a way that, yeah, secularized, and it's used for mental awareness, but really it's meant for, yeah, that's just like the surface level. That's kind of like just dealing with the surface layer that you need to just peel away, and then really there's some depth there. But I find, and it's not, this is not a discredit to Wim at all. I fully appreciate what he's doing, because if he didn't do it, where would this practice, have offered hundreds of thousands of people the opportunity to develop a higher consciousness, or just to rid themselves of obstacles that are hindering them. So I think that there's value in both, but I think it's nice how you're sharing that. Yeah, once you have discovered it and it's authentic for you, then it's nice to put it on the table. And I think that's where my kirtan is also like, I'm trying to make it devotional. I'm trying to make it God-centered, but at the same time not closing the door for someone that has no interest in that. So it's that nuance of always trying to figure that out. How do you deal with that? Because I've watched your Instagram content. I think it's very authentic. I think it's also very relevant and accessible. Do you have like a cutoff point of what you will share on social media and what you think this needs to happen in maybe a retreat setting or in a more private setting? Where do you go with it? Like, where's your cutoff point?
The problem with social media is they're just snippets, so you can't always go that deep. So there's nothing that I wouldn't share about my journey and all the rest of it. But I can't get that across in a
minute,
a TikTok or a reel. Yeah. So I try to. I mean, if you look on my grid, you'll find 60 seconds of me explaining what Kensho is.
60 seconds.
But you don't really get the gravity of it. I mean, it's a complete like 180 shift in everything you've ever known about yourself.
Right. How are you going to get that in 60 seconds? Eh?
So yeah, but it's fun to try. It's fun to play with it.
Do you think it's a tragedy that knowledge has been limited to 60 seconds? That people want it, I want it now. Do you think that's a tragedy?
In a way, but then it's a way in. So I make these little videos and I quite enjoy the challenge of coming up with something that will be interesting and engaging for people. And then if they like it, some of those people will go on and come to like my 1-hour webinars, or they'll sign up for my course. And the people who are really connecting with you, they'll be willing to
that's what I actually look for. I always look for people who come on the podcast that, yes, offer 1-minute snippets and have a platform on social media. Yes, that's one tick box. But then is there an opportunity for them to go deeper with this person? Is there an opportunity for them to, exactly what you said, go onto a 1-hour webinar where there's substance? Because I think the detail is how you present it in branding, but the principle is that there should be some substance. And I think that both are required in some sense. And how a person or a teacher navigates that has to be, they have to have the onus on how they do that. But I think that's quite interesting. I want to meditate with you. You're known as being Jimmy, that meditation guy. And would you be up for sharing a meditation with us?
Mm-hmm, yeah, we can do that.
Yeah? I don't know what you need me to do, take a shoe off, or...
Just sit comfortably, really.
Really? Okay.
So
there's no posture?
No, we don't need to do that for now. We can just sit.
Interesting. Okay, cool. Sit comfortably.
Yeah, we just do it like this.
All right. Nothing with the hands, just...
Yeah, however you feel is comfortable.
All right.
You already are your true nature. So
it's getting deep, Jimmy.
We don't need to try too hard.
I'm already my true nature. All right. Okay. I'm ready.
Okay, so you can have your eyes open or closed, but let's start with the eyes closed. Okay, and let's start by taking a big deep breath in through the nostrils and out through the mouth. And then become aware of the experience of seeing. even with your eyes closed, the experience of seeing is still available. It might feel like you're gazing into a void or a black screen, but there may be colors and lights, maybe sparkles, things like that showing up. So just be absolutely present with the experience of seeing right now with your eyes closed. And if anybody's listening to this with their eyes open, just do the same thing with your eyes open. Now, when it comes to seeing, it can also be an inner experience. You have a mental screen, and images will be projected onto that. So if something flashes up in your mind, like the face of a friend or some other thing, then that's also an experience of seeing. So you can be absolutely present with the experience of seeing, whether it's in your eyes or coming from your eyes or coming from your mind. Okay, and now you can let that go. Take a breath. And become aware of what you can hear. Be absolutely present with the experience of hearing. You may hear sounds around the room. You can hear my voice. And you might hear sounds off into the distance. Don't interpret or make sense of it or think about what those sounds are. Just tune in to the experience of hearing. You don't want any more of anything, and you don't want any less of anything. Just this. But when it comes to hearing, it's not just things outside of you that you hear. You might hear the little voice in your mind talking. Or you might hear a song that you heard earlier on the radio. That's also a form of hearing. So whatever is happening in the field of hearing, whether it's inside or out, just be absolutely present with that. Okay, now you can let that go. Take a breath if you like. And allow your attention to float down into the body. What can you feel in terms of physical sensations? The touch of clothes on the skin, some change in temperature, the contact with the chair you're sitting on, or the feet on the floor if you're standing. Maybe there's an itch or some aches and pains, discomfort, whatever it is. Just allow your attention to be drawn to whatever is there for you now, and really sink your awareness into it for a few seconds before you're drawn to something else. And just explore, allow your attention to free float around within the body. See where it lands. You can think of the body as a cloud of sensation, and your attention moves around within that cloud. Wherever it lands, soak your attention in for a few seconds, and then drift to something else if you like. But when it comes to feeling, it's not only physical sensations, we also have emotions. And emotions will show up in the body too. So just see if you can pick up on that now. Are there any emotions present? Joy, happiness, bliss, relief, or maybe the other way, sadness, heaviness. If you can pick up on an emotion, see if you can find out where that's happening in the body. Maybe in the chest or the belly. See if you can make contact with that. Soak your awareness into that for a moment. Okay, and then one last thing before we finish. Let go of all of that. Take a breath. And just ask yourself, what's here when there's no problem to solve? What's here when there's no problem to solve? And rest in that. And now we can transition out of the meditation. So you can wiggle your fingers and toes, take some deeper breaths. But as you come out of the meditation, if you did manage to contact some tranquility, some peace, some positivity, see if you can bring that with you out of the meditation and back into your normal waking state. Your face.
That was cool.
You look pretty chilled.
I'm chilled.
Great.
That felt like it was eternity. But like I was in this space, like completely different from here.
I felt like I was trying to... I thought, I'm going to have to keep this fairly concise, but I could have stretched that out for hours, honestly.
Really? Hours?
Yeah.
I'd love to do an hour long. Do you do hour long?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, what's cool about something like that, the see, hear, feel technique, which is one of the...
See,
hear, feel.
See, hear, feel technique.
Yeah, or it could also be known in other traditions as choiceless awareness or open monitoring.
Choiceless awareness.
What's great about that is you can just bring it in and out of your life as you're moving around. So if you go to the shops quickly...
Inner voice.
You just recognize what's happening now. Okay, I'm feeling my feet on the floor. Okay, now I'm tuned into what I'm seeing in front of me.
You're doing this, no?
yeah, this is happening all the time. And if you
felt like that when you walked in the door.
Well, yeah, after a while you don't need to do it, it just sort of does itself. And that gets you out of the thinking mind. You're not constantly going, what's next? What's on my to-do list? Blah, blah, blah. I'm just absolutely here in this moment.
I got that vibe. You know, when you sat down here, a lot of guests, they show their nervousness or like they show that there's a need to converse immediately. But there's certain guests that come just like, there's no need. It's fine. And it's not because of like nothing valuable to say, but just it is.
Just this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's nice. It was actually genuinely like, I noticed it. I was conscious of it. When you walked in also, I could perceive it. And it's not like I'm some mystic dude or something, but it's just once you meet enough people, you can tell like there's a certain energy that comes when they walk through the door. Interesting. This convo's been great.
Yeah, it's been very nice.
Is there anything on your heart, on your mind that you wish to share with the people that are watching, hearing this conversation right now?
I would say that if you feel called to really take the deep dive inwards and the journey and really try and make contact with who you really are, then do it. Just go for it. This isn't for Buddhas and yogis and sages who lived thousands of years ago. It's what you already are. You're just discovering what's already there. So it's there for you. It really is.
Beautiful. Jimmy, thank you so much. We want to end with some quick fire questions. You up for it?
Sure.
You're a Zen guy. I can't imagine you being very much into the quick fire, but let's try it. It might be long fire. It might get deep. Question number 1. What's something you're curious about right now in your meditation?
Oh, it's just everything. Like I just want to explore what's been discovered. So I've had this big discovery of like, oh wow, I've been overlooking this thing my whole life, and now I'm in direct contact with it. I just want to let it come through more, embody it more, explore it more. So every time I meditate, it's all about that. But it's also just all the time. It doesn't have to be during a set sitting period. It can be right now talking to you.
Wow. Long may it be. Long may you be curious about that. What's something that you're personally working through in your meditation at the moment?
Oh, that's easy. Because I had such a profound peak experience, my intellectual mind wants to give a TED talk on that quite often, and so I need to get out. There's not really any use to that. It doesn't serve me any real purpose. But the
it's
mind
coming from a loving place, I guess.
Oh
as well.
yeah. It's just because it's so fascinated, and also the intellect wants to take what happened and kind of it can make it part of a new identity, and so yeah, you have to be on the lookout for things like that. But luckily, the meditation practices can take you away from that if you want to get away from that, and you can indulge it when you want to indulge it.
It sounds like my desire to one day be able to sing in front of 10, 15, 20,000 people. It's like, yeah, it's a desire, but also like it's not the end goal, you know. It's like that would be nice if it bumps along on the way, but it's okay, you know. Just yeah, I can understand if I understood correctly in the same context.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
Wonderful. In short, question number 3. In short, what legacy would you like to leave behind in this world?
Oh, I'd like to. Ideally, I'd love to help people along. I can't really give anybody this experience that I'm talking about, but I'd love to help people along in getting to that place, or if not that place, to a place which is just free from suffering or less suffering. You know, ultimately that's what it comes down to: is you get pushed along because you're feeling like you want to be more free, more liberated. And what it's going to sound completely insane, but
No?
what I didn't realize until it was shown to me right there was that I was the prison. The Jimmy character was the prison, and it was seeing through that which brings a certain amount of liberation. That's not to say that I go through my life without having problems and struggles and issues now. That's not the case at all. But there is a profound shift from what things were like before to what they're like now. You know?
Seeing through them. I like how you described that. Thank you. Yeah. I hope that legacy comes to be something you used to deeply value in your practice but don't value as much anymore.
Oh, that's a good question. The big difference now is that my practice used to be very set. So 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the afternoon or evening. That's how it started. And for years I did that. That's transcendental meditation, sort of how it's taught. You stick very religiously to these times and do it for this amount of time. And that really worked for me. That sorted out my insomnia and my depression and got me into a good place where I was really happy in life before this other thing took over and wanting to know who I am. And so I've let go of that routine to some degree now. I just meditate. I meditate every day, but I meditate when I feel like. I meditate for a length of time that I feel like. And I've also, on the journey, learnt new ways to meditate. So when I found a teacher called Shinzen Young, he showed me how you can bring mindfulness and other techniques into your life, and that's how you can mix it all together. So it's all become all a bit jumbled up now.
Far out.
So yeah, I really think there's a lot of benefit though
In structure.
for people who are new to do the structural thing.
Mm.
But I don't feel such a need for it anymore.
Yeah, there's a term in the Bhakti tradition known as Vaidhi Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti. Vaidhi Bhakti means you have a discipline, which you have a set amount of chanting rounds, perhaps to complete in a day, certain amount of service that you perform in a day that's very structured. And slowly we move into the spontaneous, which is the openness and just going, yeah, this is in every moment. It's not that you drop the Vaidhi, it's constant. It's not like you have to pencil it in. It's just constantly happening. So like people who are experiencing this Raganuga Bhakti, they're chanting constantly, even in their sleep. They're constantly remembering this loving awareness, constantly remembering this loving connection with divinity. And so that's the spontaneous that you spoke about, which one day, who knows, if it's meant for me in this lifetime and I'm trying, maybe we'll get there together.
Well, I would suggest that what kind of happens when you're doing the kirtan is that the constructed sense of self will start to fall into the background,
That's
and the
exactly what
true
happens.
nature will start to push forward.
That's exactly what happens.
Yeah, yeah. And so, but in that moment, in that high moment when you're really like in the flow and everything is coming together, self-consciousness falls away, and then it's like that true nature will just be like really pressing outwards.
People
And
don't
that's why
understand
you
that.
love it so much,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. People don't understand it. Like they'll be like, "How did that feel?" And I want to tell them, I don't think I was really feeling. It was more I was expressing love. Like I was loving. That was the kind of. It's not like, oh, people want to know like how it made me feel, but it was like I became a background in that whole thing. Exactly what you said. It wasn't about me. In fact, you know, when I finished at Union Chapel, I got off the stage and went straight backstage because I didn't so much want to deal with that was amazing and you're so cool and you, and I was like, I don't want to do that because it wasn't about me anyway. That wasn't the purpose. But yeah, we have to also be kind and accept gratitude and accept love. And so I did come out after 5 minutes, and you know, once the crowd had died down a little bit, then I came back out again just to accept that, yeah, this is not even glory for me to keep as my own, but to pass on upwards. And so both are required. But yeah, that's very much exactly what happened in the pinnacle moments of my chanting moments. I'm no longer in the center of attention at the front of the bus, at the back of the, you know, back of the church, and it's firmly in the center of attention. That's kind of dissipated. And so, yeah, interesting. And finally, question number 5. If you could create one law that everyone in meditation had to follow, what would it be?
One law that everybody had to follow.
Whilst meditating or within the circles of meditation.
Okay. I would say the most important thing, the one law, is that don't give your power away. So really trust yourself, and if something isn't working for you, you can change it. If a teacher doesn't feel right to you, go find another one. And you can keep doing that as long as you need to. Because I do feel some people get stuck in a particular tradition that isn't serving them, or with a particular teacher that isn't serving them, and it's your journey. No one's gonna really show you the way. Some people will open the door for you, but you have to walk through it.
Thanks, Jimmy. That was awesome combo. I hope that everything that you had in your heart that you wanted to come out came out. And yeah, I hope it was a productive conversation for you, but also well worth your time. That's, you know, I feel guilty you had to come all the way out from Brighton, but yeah, that you came, I'm deeply grateful. And for everyone that is listening and hearing and watching, I genuinely feel that this was a wonderful conversation if you're interested in meditation, whether at a beginning stage or really at its depth. I think there was a lot revealed here, and maybe you need to re-listen to the combo, like rewind, re-listen to it, find the nuggets again, find the moments of real interest in education again. But from Jimmy and I, we're signing off from this week's For Soul's Sake. Share it with a friend, broaden the conversation, go give Jimmy a follow, check out his stuff, and yeah, for Soul's Sake, see you soon.
So